The MCU is slowly but surely coming back together after, let's all admittedly say, a rather slow Phase 4. Following the conclusion of the Infinity Saga, Marvel Studios kind of faltered due to the lack of a solid plan. I mean, how are you supposed to follow such a giant decade-building long story like the Infinity Saga? While there have been some standouts in Phase 4, Spider-Man No Way Home, Werewolf by Night, Black Panther, there's also been some underwhelming and confusing projects like She-Hulk, Eternals, Multiverse of Madness to some people, and Hawkeye, resulting in the MCU kind of finding itself in a weird spot. There really hasn't been any overarching story, and some of the projects have kind of contradicted each other, like how there are now multiple different explanations of the multiverse, and it's completely unclear what actually happened at the end of the Eternals and that giant celestial that's just sitting in the ocean. However, Kevin Feige has been adamant that things are going to come together and everything is eventually leading to Secret Wars and that showdown with Kang the Conqueror and possibly Doctor Doom. We'll see. Welcome to the Chaos Multiverse, everybody. Jimmy here. Today, we have an Avengers 6 plan that has allegedly been leaked. And if it ends up being true in any just manner, any level, it's insane. It really, really is. A lot of fans are eager to see what's going to happen. With the news of the X-Men officially joining the MCU in the future, how's it going to play out? How is Marvel Studios going to handle such a giant story? And thanks to recent rumors, it seems we have an idea of what to go off of. Doesn't explain everything, but if this rumor ends up being true, we may actually have a decent blueprint of how Secret Wars is going to work on the big screen and how the past, present, and future of Marvel are all going to collide. Take it all with a grain of salt, of course. It's not confirmed at all, but we're going to go over a lot of speculation in this video, and we're going to talk about how Avengers 6 Secret Wars and what Kevin Feige has in store is actually going to happen, and the showdown with Kang. Make sure you guys drop a like, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So according to an insider source, Kevin Feige is currently figuring out what they refer to as Portals 2.0. Do you guys remember the scene in Avengers Endgame? Of course you do. The portals pop open, the entire cast comes back from the snap to participate in the final battle, Avengers assemble, iconic. Basically, it's going to be that, but even bigger, and across the entire multiverse. Our intel comes from heavy spoilers, who you may be aware of if you run in the Marvel or DC circles on Twitter and Reddit and YouTube, and according to them, it's the finale of Avengers Secret Wars is going to be another giant showdown between two huge armies, but this time, the heroes are going to have even more iconic characters on their side, and it's going to be from across the entire multiverse as opposed to just being established heroes from the main timeline. Yes, we're talking X-Men, Fantastic Four. We're talking past X-Men and Fantastic Four. According to insider reports, Avengers Secret Wars is not going to come until after various aspects of other Marvel Cinematic Universe have been revived. We already know Deadpool 3 is coming out in a couple years, and Hugh Jackman will be returning as Wolverine, meaning this will be the official point where the Foxverse X-Men and the MCU timelines merge together. Yes, we saw Professor X in Multiverse of Madness, but that version of the character was not the same as the one in the Fox X-Men movies. Deadpool 3, on the other hand, is going to somehow tie the MCU to the Fox universe. But the insiders are also claiming that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will play some kind of role in the new Avengers movie as well, which suggests that Marvel Studios is not yet finished with the older Spider-Man. So far, we've heard a number of rumors about Andrew actually returning as Spider-Man in a new movie, while Tobey will likely show up at some point in the future as a mentor for younger versions of Peter Parker. But the point I'm getting at is over the next couple years, Marvel is reportedly going to try and reintroduce the non-MCU timelines into the MCU so everything can come together for this special Secret Wars. Right now, we have a main MCU timeline, and we have the Sonyverse timeline, the one with Venom and Morbius. But before Secret Wars is released, the now defunct timelines like the Foxverse, the X-Men timeline, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man timeline, the Amazing Spider-Man timeline, they're all going to be reintroduced to the MCU, essentially as their own separate timelines that have existed at the same time as everything else. Now, the multiverse concept was introduced back in the original Doctor Strange movie, but then elaborated on in future projects. According to the current MCU rules of the multiverse, there are an infinite number of universes with an infinite number of outcomes. So if the insider reports are to be believed, Marvel is currently planning on doing some minor retconning in order to make every single cinematic Marvel universe part of the MCU, simply as alternate timelines. Then absolutely everything would come together in the finale of Secret Wars. It's even been rumored that the 2005 Fantastic Four movie is going to be revived this way as well. I'm not entirely sure I believe that one, but it'd be crazy. With a project this big, I don't know. Certain things are going to have to be forgotten, I'm sure. So while I totally expect the Foxverse X-Men movies and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies to be retroactively added, I don't know if I'm going to hold my breath over stuff like 2005 Fantastic Four or the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movies, as awesome as that would be. Basically, everything important is going to be revived and placed in the MCU like this giant puzzle. And the final picture will be the end of Secret Wars. But before you get too excited, there's a few major question marks that need to be addressed. First of all, while digital de-aging can go a long way, it can't fix everything. Marvel's de-aging technology has been pretty freaking incredible up to this point. Alfred Molina and No Way Home, for example. But with actors like Patrick Stewart and Robert Downey Jr., it might not be that easy. Secret Wars is still years away. Unless Marvel plans on filming all this stuff very soon in complete secrecy, which they're not, I don't know the logistics. First of all, if you want to get all the major X-Men back on screen, you're going to have to cough up a lot of money. But you're also going to have to do a lot of work to getting them to look even close to how we remember them. The characters may be superhuman, but the actors are mortal, and it's going to be a little strange if Secret Wars rolls around and instead we get a bunch of soccer dads in X-Men costumes instead of the awesome heroes we remember. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being realistic. If Marvel brings back a bunch of older big-screen Marvel characters but doesn't bring their A-game with the de-aging and makeup, the moment may end up looking more goofy and awkward than epic. I think Spider-Man No Way Home handled it perfectly. They didn't try to de-age Tobey or Andrew. Instead, they embraced the fact that these were older, more experienced versions of Spider-Man. And while Dr. Octopus was de-aged a bit, the actual effects were minimal enough that most people didn't notice. Now, granted, Patrick Stewart has looked exactly the same for the last 40 years, and Hugh Jackman literally doesn't age. So the X-Men shouldn't be too hard to bring back to the big screen. But what about characters like Magneto, Rogue, Mystique? How are they going to handle those? Which version are they going to bring to the big screen? And what about the Fantastic Four? The rumors currently state that the 2005 Fantastic Four cast are being considered for a return. What about the 2015 Fantastic Four? I mean, if the 05 version gets retroactively added to the MCU, doesn't that mean the 15 version does too? I don't think anybody wants it, but I don't know. Also, if the 2005 Fantastic Four is brought back to the big screen, how do you get around the obvious fact that Steve Rogers is also the Human Torch? I don't want to sound cynical, but with a project this big, I'm worried. I'm worried that Kevin Feige may be over his head. I know, he can do it. I mean, nobody thought a showdown like what we saw in Avengers Endgame was ever going to be topped, nor would you spend the next 10 years trying to build up another one. Well, it's not even going to be 10 years this time. What about all these characters? I mean, are they going to get a decent reintroduction? Is there going to be time for any of this? And how is Marvel going to reintroduce these older versions of characters without confusing us with newer versions? The X-Men are reportedly being brought back, but isn't that going to get confusing if they also bring back old versions? How does this play into the rumors that the older MCU characters like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark are returning? Now, the comic nerd in me is stoked. I'm absolutely stoked to see what Marvel has in store for the showdown of Secret Wars, especially considering how crazy the comic art gets. But there's a huge difference between storytelling in a comic book and storytelling in a movie, especially when you start considering multiple universes, timelines, all that. The Secret Wars arc in the comics was able to get super crazy and meta because it was literally dozens of different story arcs and years of storytelling all coming together into one arc, but I'm worried that Marvel Studios is seeing that as an opportunity to put as many famous faces on the screen without considering just how hard it's going to be to get that story to connect effectively. Let's be honest with each other about one thing. Avengers Endgame simply would not have worked if you weren't invested in the story for so long. Endgame simply does not stand on its own 2 feet. That's not a bad thing because it was never supposed to stand on its own 2 feet. It was the conclusion of a giant story with a decade's worth of movies paving the way. But without the decade of storytelling, a movie like Endgame simply wouldn't have worked, and that movie was 3 hours long. So what happens now that Marvel is trying to essentially triple the backstory for another movie? If the rumors are correct, and I think they may be, Secret Wars is not only going to be a conclusion of Phase 6 of the MCU, but it's also going to include characters from the Infinity Saga, the Fox X-Men universe, the 2005 Fantastic Four universe, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, the Mark Webb Spider-Man universe, and the current Sony Spider-Man universe. Unless Marvel expects us to go into Secret Wars with our phones ready to Google absolutely everything on the screen, they're going to have to bring their A-game with the storytelling. They are. Over the next couple years, Phase 5, Phase 6, it's got to be spot on. Now, I keep saying I don't mean to sound cynical, and I really mean that, but with Phase 4 being underwhelming and Secret Wars allegedly being so insane, I don't know how we're going to get there in less than 3 years. There's going to have to be changes. It's no secret that a lot of MCU fans are kind of on the back burner right now after Phase 4. But now we're hearing Marvel Studios is trying to bring back a ton of older characters while also bringing the narrative of their main universe together for Secret Wars. I don't know. I would love to see the X-Men return to the big screen, assuming they're treated with respect. I would love to see Cap and Iron Man on the big screen, assuming they're treated with respect. But with how busy Marvel is right now, just trying to get their own universe back on track in Disney Plus, it's going to be tough. People aren't going to come to the movie just to see old characters if you don't give them something new to care about. Heck, that's the big thing that Star Wars has proven over the last few years. It doesn't matter if you bring back old characters and tug on our nostalgia strings if your main story isn't worth caring about. The Mandalorian, it worked because it brought back old Star Wars characters and plot lines while also giving us something new and exciting to tie it all together. Spider-Man No Way Home, it worked. It revived the old Spider-Man movies while tying them into the new Spider-Man that people love. On the flip side, She-Hulk, it didn't work. Despite having a ton of cameos and returning characters, the core plot nobody cared about. Rise of Skywalker flopped because despite having returning characters and a lot of cameos, the actual story and the new cast of characters was not interesting. I'm worried that Marvel Studios are going to go down the wrong path with Secret Wars. From a certain point of view, I think the Secret Wars news about returning characters and the whole Portals 2.0 may actually be bad because it could be interpreted as Marvel focusing on the wrong things. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm going to put trust in Kevin Feige. But I am skeptical right now. I am. And if it all comes together, maybe the greatest movie theater experience of all time. But if the main MCU storyline doesn't fix itself very soon, Secret Wars may end up being a bloated, rushed, and disappointing conclusion to the new Marvel story that simply it couldn't live up to what it came before it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you.